My younger brother and sister manipulated me into giving up my inheritance and our childhood home, leaving me with nothing after I had dedicated 15 years of my life to caring for our sick mother. My name is Arthur Pendleton, and I'm 58 years old. This isn't just a story about a family squabble over money. It's about how the people you love can be the ones to stick the knife in the deepest, and how sometimes you have to dig through the dirt of the past to reclaim your future. For the last 15 years, my life was contained within the walls of our old Victorian house on Chestnut Avenue. It wasn't by choice, not really. It was because my mother needed me. She had a cruel, slow-moving form of multiple sclerosis that stole her mobility, her sight, and eventually her voice. While my younger brother Mark was off getting his MBA and becoming a real estate hotshot, and my sister Ashley was marrying into money and curating her perfect life on social media, I was the one at home. I was the chief cook, nurse, and companion. My own life just evaporated. My career as a historical researcher and writer fizzled out. My research deadlines became doctor's appointments. My trips to the archives became trips to the pharmacy. I didn't get married. I didn't travel. My world shrank to the size of my mother's needs. And honestly, for a long time, I didn't resent it. I loved my mother. And I was naive enough to believe my siblings were grateful. Oh, they played the part beautifully. They'd swoop in for holidays, armed with expensive gift baskets and well-rehearsed, sorrowful looks. Mark, all slick suits and confidence, would clap me on the back. "Arthur, you're a saint. I don't know how you do it." Ashley would give me a quick, airy hug that smelled of Chanel No. 5 and say, "We just appreciate you so much." Their appreciation, as it turned out, had a very short shelf life. When Mom finally passed away, the silence in the house was deafening. Amidst the crushing grief, there was a tiny sliver of solace. I had the house, the memories, and my mother's sprawling garden. The will, I thought, was straightforward. Mom's savings were to be split 3 ways, but the house, our family's anchor for a century, was left solely to me. It was her thank you note, written in property law. The betrayal didn't wait long. It came less than a week after the funeral, over stale coffee at the oak dining table. "Arthur," Mark began, folding his hands. He had that look he got when he was about to close a deal, a mixture of feigned sincerity and predatory focus. "We need to discuss the house." "It's just not practical, Artie," Ashley chimed in, using a childhood nickname that now felt like a tiny dagger. "This place is a money pit. The taxes, the upkeep, you'll be drowning. Mom wouldn't want you to be burdened like that." I was floored. "Burdened? This is my home. Mom left it to me." "She left it to you because she felt guilty," Mark said, his voice taking on a condescending edge. "Because you were here. But we all know what she really wanted was for things to be fair. For her children to be equal. For you to keep $1 million asset while we get a few thousand from her savings. That's not what she would have wanted. It's not right." They were a well-oiled machine. They tag-teamed me, twisting my love for Mom into a weapon. They painted me as selfish, greedy, and ungrateful for wanting to keep the one thing I had earned with 15 years of my life. "Think about it," Ashley said, her eyes wide with false sincerity. "You could finally live. Get that quiet cabin by the lake you always talked about. Travel. You haven't taken a real vacation in 20 years. This house is an anchor, tying you to the past." For 2 weeks, it was a relentless siege. Daily phone calls. Emails with links to articles about the crippling costs of maintaining old homes. They chipped away at my resolve, my confidence, my sanity. I was grieving. I was exhausted. And I was alone. I caved. I remember sitting in a sterile lawyer's office, a man Mark had graciously arranged for us, staring at a quitclaim deed. Signing it would transfer my sole ownership to the estate, allowing the house to be sold and the money split 3 ways. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Pendleton?" the lawyer asked, his eyes glancing at Mark for a fraction of a second too long. I looked at my brother and sister. They were beaming, radiating what I desperately wanted to believe was relief and family unity. "It's the fair thing to do," I mumbled, and with a shaky hand, I signed away my home. I moved into a depressing 1-bedroom apartment across town. I handed them the keys to my past and waited for the for sale sign to appear on the lawn. It never did. About 2 months later, a gut feeling made me drive by Chestnut Avenue. My world tilted on its axis. A massive construction dumpster sat in the driveway like an open wound. The beautiful climbing roses framing the porch were gone, ripped out. The classic wavy glass of the original windows had been replaced with gaping, black, modern frames. I pulled over, my hands trembling so hard I could barely hold my phone. I called Mark. "Oh, hey Art," he answered, his voice obnoxiously cheerful. "What's up?" "The house, Mark." "What the hell is happening to the house? I thought you were selling it." He chuckled. It was a cold, empty sound that made my blood run cold. "Yeah, well, change of plans. The market's a little soft, so I made an executive decision. I bought out your and Ashley's shares. It's my property now. Doing a full gut reno. It's gonna be a showpiece." I couldn't breathe. "You bought my share? How much did you pay me for my share?" "Exactly what we agreed on," he said, the smugness dripping from his voice. "1/3 of the appraised value, minus projected closing costs and fees. It's all legal, Arthur. You signed the paperwork." He had conned me. He had used my grief and my sense of fairness to orchestrate a hostile takeover. The money he paid me, roughly $300,000, was a pittance for a historic home in this neighborhood, especially one he was about to flip for a massive profit. He hadn't just taken my home, he'd stolen it for pennies on the dollar. The months that followed were a gray fog of depression and rage. I was a 58-year-old man with a 15-year gap in his resume, living in a dump, watching his life savings dwindle. I'd scroll through Ashley's social media and see pictures of her on a yacht in Greece, with a caption, "So blessed to have a family that always puts each other first." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. One miserable, rainy afternoon, I was unpacking the last of my mother's boxes. It was mostly old photo albums and her gardening journals. As I leafed through one of the journals, a memory hit me like a physical blow. It was from a few years back. Mom was having a good day, and we were sitting in the garden. She looked over at the huge, ancient rows of Sharon bush at the back of the property. "That one's special, Arthur," she'd said, her voice a soft whisper. "It was your grandmother's favorite. It's a tough old bird. It has deep roots. Stronger than they look. If things ever get tough, you remember the roots." At the time, I thought it was just a sweet, sentimental comment. But now, her words echoed in my head with a new urgency. Asterisk stronger than they look. Remember the roots. Asterisk my mother was a gentle woman, but she was sharp. She knew her children. She knew Mark's ambition and Ashley's vapid materialism. Could she have anticipated this? Was it possible she had left me something? A fail-safe? A wild, desperate idea sparked in my mind. I had to get back into that garden. Mark was living in the house now, overseeing his grand renovation. A new security fence with an electronic gate surrounded the property. But I had grown up in that house. I knew its secrets. I knew about the loose slat in the back fence behind the old oak tree that we used to sneak out of as kids. Tonight, I was going to commit breaking and entering. Tonight, I was going to break into my own home. Dressed in dark clothes that felt like a costume for a crime I shouldn't have to commit, I parked my car several blocks away. The night was quiet, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt. Slipping through the old neighborhood, I felt like a ghost haunting my own past. The new fence was imposing, but the loose slat behind the ancient oak was exactly where I remembered it. I squeezed through, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was standing in my garden. Or what was left of it. The sight was a punch to the gut. Mark's work crews had turned it into a wasteland of mud and debris. My mother's beloved flower beds were gone. The sheer desecration of it all solidified my grief into something hard and sharp, rage. I navigated the wreckage to the back of the yard. The old rows of Sharon bush stood defiant, the only thing left untouched. Armed with a small garden trowel and a flashlight dimmed with red tape, I knelt in the damp earth. My mother's words were a mantra in my head, "Remember the roots." I dug for what felt like an eternity, my hands growing numb and my back screaming in protest. Just as despair began to set in, my trowel struck something with a dull, metallic clunk. It wasn't a rock. My breath caught. I abandoned the trowel, clawing at the dirt with my bare fingers until I unearthed a small, rusted metal box. It was locked, of course. I had no key. Fueled by adrenaline, I jammed the edge of the trowel into the seam and pried with all my might. With a final, groaning screech, the lid popped open. Inside, sealed in a heavy-duty plastic bag, was a thick manila envelope. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. The contents were simple, but they changed everything. The first was a letter in my mother's familiar, elegant handwriting. "My dearest Arthur, if you are reading this, then my greatest fears have come true. I know your brother and sister. I know their ambition, and I know your kind heart, which they mistake for weakness. I am so sorry I could not be there to protect you from this. Leaving the house to you in the will was my first line of defense. But I knew Mark especially would not let that stand. So, I prepared a second, hidden one. The document in this envelope is your fortress. It is your right. Your father and I built our lives in that house, and you honored that legacy with your sacrifice. A love like yours should not be repaid with betrayal. Go and take back what is rightfully yours. All my love, Mom." Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the words. She knew. She had seen the storm coming and had built me a shelter. The second item in the envelope was a folded legal document. I unfolded it carefully. It was a quitclaim deed. But this one was dated 5 years prior. It was signed by my mother and notarized by her lifelong lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, shortly before he retired. The deed didn't transfer ownership to me, Arthur Pendleton. It transferred the house into an ironclad legal entity, the Chestnut Avenue Heritage Trust. And the sole trustee and lifetime beneficiary of that trust? Arthur Pendleton. My mother had secretly transferred the house into a trust for me 5 years before she died. The will was a ghost. A decoy. When she passed away, she no longer legally owned the house to leave it to anyone. It was already mine, protected by layers of legal armor. The deed I had signed in Mark's lawyer's office was completely, utterly worthless. You can't give away something you don't own. The house was never part of the estate. A slow, cold, triumphant smile spread across my face. My gentle mother had laid the perfect trap, and my greedy siblings had walked right into it. The next morning, I didn't call them. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a warning. I took my mother's letter and the deed to the most notorious real estate litigator in the city, a shark named Harrison Kane. Kane read the documents, his face impassive. When he looked up, a predatory gleam was in his eyes. "Mr. Pendleton," he said, "your mother was a brilliant woman. This is airtight. So, what's the objective here? Simple eviction, or do we make a statement?" "I want them to understand what they did," I said, my voice hard as steel. "I want to make a statement." Kane's plan was a masterpiece of legal warfare. We didn't just file for eviction. We hit Mark with a lawsuit for damages to a trust property, citing the destruction of historical features and the garden. We calculated the fair market rent for the months he had been illegally occupying the property and sent him a bill that made his eyes water. The money he had paid me for my share? We legally reclassified it as a partial, unsolicited rent payment. And Ashley wasn't spared. As a co-conspirator in the fraudulent inducement, she was named in the suit, making her jointly liable. The money she had proudly posted about spending on her Grecian holiday was now a debt she owed to the trust. Mark was served the papers at his office, in the middle of a meeting where he was allegedly bragging about his clever real estate acquisition. The public humiliation was, I'm told, profound. His phone call to me was a symphony of sputtering rage. "What is this, Arthur? This is insane. We had a deal." "No, Mark," I said calmly, the words tasting like victory. "You had a con. Mom had a plan. Her plan was better. They fought it, of course. Hired expensive lawyers. But there was nothing to fight. The trust was inviolable. Their case was laughed out of court. The settlement was devastating for them. Mark was forced to pay for the full restoration of the house, all the back rent, and all my legal fees. It crippled him financially. He had to liquidate 2 other properties at a loss. Ashley's wealthy husband, incensed that he was now on the hook for his wife's family drama, cut her off. Their perfect life imploded. I am back home. It's a work in progress, a mix of restored woodwork and raw plaster. But it's mine. Every day, I work on it, sanding a floor or replanting a flower bed. It feels like I'm not just restoring a house, I'm restoring my own life. A few weeks ago, I was out front, tending to the new rose bushes I'd planted. A car pulled up. It was Mark. He looked smaller, diminished. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out weariness. "Arthur," he said, not meeting my eyes. I'm sorry." I straightened up, wiping the dirt from my hands. I looked at the man who was my brother, who had been willing to leave me with nothing. "Are you sorry for what you did, Mark?" I asked, my voice even, "or are you just sorry for how it turned out for you?" He had no answer. He just got back in his car and drove away. I don't know if they'll ever get it. But as I stood there, in the quiet of the evening, breathing in the smell of the earth, I realized it no longer mattered. My revenge wasn't about their destruction. It was about my reconstruction. It was about honoring a mother's love, a love so fierce and so clever it could reach back from the grave to save her son. The house is peaceful now. It's no longer a monument to betrayal, but a testament to a love that truly has deep roots. If you like this story, like and subscribe us for this type of stuff. Thank you. See you soon.